Rain had followed Nathan Vale for most of his life. Not literal rain, perhaps, but the feeling of it. Coldness, gray skies, the quiet understanding that the world had already decided what kind of man you were long before you had the chance to become anything better. That was how Nathan justified things. It was easier than guilt. The old ambulance jacket hanging from his shoulders smelled faintly of smoke and antiseptic as he drove through the narrow forest roads of northern Pennsylvania. The windshield wipers dragged slowly across the glass, pushing away thin rivers of rainwater, while old jazz murmured through the van speakers. Nathan drove with one hand resting loosely on the wheel. Calm, controlled, professional. That was the important part. People trusted confidence, especially old people, especially frightened old people. The white van he drove had once belonged to a private transport company before Nathan bought it cheap from an auction lot 2 years earlier. He had removed the company logo himself, repainted sections of the body, added magnetic emergency symbols to the sides, and installed a cheap red dashboard light that looked convincing enough from a distance. Most people never questioned uniforms. A jacket, a badge, a calm voice. That was all it took. Nathan had learned that during the brief 6 months, he attended paramedic training before dropping out after his mother died. Debt buried him shortly afterward. Then addiction followed. Then desperation. Now, at 31 years old, Nathan made his living pretending to save lives while quietly stealing from those already close to death. Painkillers. Cash hidden in drawers. Jewelry no one would notice missing until after funerals. He never hurt anyone. That mattered to him. At least it still mattered enough for him to repeat it silently whenever sleep became difficult. The rain intensified as the forest thickened around the road. Tall pine trees leaned inward like dark cathedral walls. Nathan glanced down at the crumpled paper sitting beside him on the passenger seat. Willow Road. The address had been spoken to him nearly an hour earlier by a trembling elderly woman calling from a payphone. "My husband can't breathe," she had whispered. Her voice had sounded exhausted, weak, perfect. Nathan almost ignored the call at first because the road did not appear properly on his GPS. But isolated homes usually meant elderly residents, and elderly residents usually meant medication. So he drove. The deeper he traveled into the forest, the more uneasy he became. No houses, no passing cars, no streetlights. Only endless rain and black trees disappearing into fog. Finally, after another 10 minutes, the road narrowed sharply before opening into a long gravel driveway. At the end of it stood the house. Willow Roadhouse looked less like a home and more like a memory someone had forgotten to bury. Tall, narrow, European in style, somehow, despite being stranded in rural America. Dark wooden walls stretched upward beneath a sharply sloped roof. Warm yellow light glowed faintly behind lace curtains, while rainwater streamed endlessly down cracked stone steps leading to the porch. Nathan slowed the van. No other vehicles sat outside. That was strange. If the husband truly could not breathe, why had nobody called an actual ambulance? Then again, panic made people irrational. Nathan parked near the porch and killed the engine. Silence settled immediately. Even the rain sounded quieter there. He stepped out of the van and adjusted the paramedic jacket carefully, before grabbing the medical bag he carried mostly for appearances. The cold night air smelled like wet earth and pine sap, and something else. Something faint beneath it all. Antiseptic. Nathan frowned slightly. The front door stood partially open. A pale line of warm light spilled across the porch. "Hello," Nathan called. No answer. Only the ticking sound of rain dripping from the roof. Nathan pushed the door open slowly. The house was warm inside. Almost too warm. Old lamps filled the rooms with soft amber light while shadows gathered heavily near the ceilings. Floral wallpaper peeled slightly at the corners. A grandfather clock stood against the far wall. Stopped. 3:07. Nathan noticed another clock above the fireplace. Also stopped. 3:07. A third sat on a side table beside the couch. 3:07 again. A slow discomfort moved through him. "Ma'am," he called louder. Still nothing. Then he saw the old man. He lay motionless on a faded green sofa beneath a wool blanket. Thin hands rested against his chest. His skin looked unnaturally pale beneath the dim lighting, almost gray. Nathan instantly slipped into character. Professional voice, calm movements, everything controlled. "Sir, I'm with emergency services." The old man slowly turned his head toward him. Nathan nearly stopped walking. The man's eyes looked wrong somehow. Not cloudy, not blind, just deeply tired, as if he had not slept in years. "You're late," the old man whispered. Nathan forced a reassuring smile. "I'm here now." The old man continued staring at him. Rain tapped softly against the windows behind them. Nathan knelt beside the couch and opened the medical bag. Most of the equipment inside barely worked anymore, but appearance mattered more than function. He reached gently for the old man's wrist. Cold, far too cold. Nathan paused. The man's pulse was barely there, or maybe not there at all. For a brief second, a strange thought crossed Nathan's mind. This man feels dead. Nathan quickly pushed the thought away. People in medical distress often became cold. That was normal. Probably. "You having trouble breathing tonight?" Nathan asked. The old man's lips twitched faintly. "They couldn't save me either." Nathan frowned. "Who couldn't?" The old man did not answer. Instead, his eyes drifted slowly toward the dark hallway leading deeper into the house. Nathan followed his gaze instinctively. Nothing stood there. Only darkness. A television somewhere nearby crackled suddenly with static. Nathan jumped slightly. The old tube TV sitting in the corner had turned itself on. Gray static hissed across the screen. Then faintly beneath the static, Nathan heard something else. A distant radio transmission. Distorted voices. Emergency codes. Unit 7 responding. Cardiac arrest. He's gone. Nathan stared at the television. What the hell? The screen flickered violently before returning to static. Nathan shut it off immediately. The room fell silent again, except now he could hear something from somewhere deeper inside the house. Coughing. Wet. Weak coughing. Nathan looked toward the hallway again. There was definitely another person inside. The wife, perhaps. But why hadn't she come back? Sir Nathan said carefully. "Where's your wife?" The old man smiled faintly. It was the saddest smile Nathan had ever seen. "She called you." A strange chill moved through Nathan's chest. The old man's eyes remained fixed on the hallway. "She still thinks someone can help." Nathan suddenly wanted to leave. Not because he believed in ghosts or haunted houses or any childish nonsense like that, but because something about the house felt profoundly wrong. Like walking into a hospital room moments after someone dies. The room still warm, the silence too heavy, the feeling that something invisible remained behind. Nathan stood. "I'm gonna check the rest of the house," he muttered. The old man closed his eyes slowly. "You shouldn't." Nathan ignored him. He walked toward the hallway while trying not to hurry. The wooden floor creaked beneath his boots. The air smelled stronger there. Antiseptic, mold, and beneath both, the faint, unmistakable scent of decay. His stomach tightened. The hallway stretched toward a staircase, disappearing into darkness upstairs. Framed family photographs lined the walls, though most had become too faded to recognize clearly. Nathan paused at one photograph near the staircase. A younger version of the old man stood, smiling beside an elderly woman, and beside them stood two paramedics. Nathan stared at the image. The uniforms looked old-fashioned, different era perhaps. One of the paramedics had his arm resting casually on the old man's shoulder. The other stood slightly behind them, tall, thin, expressionless. Nathan leaned closer. Something about the second paramedic unsettled him deeply. The photograph suddenly crackled with static. Nathan jumped backward. Not the photograph. The radio clipped to his jacket. It had turned on by itself. Static hissed loudly through the speaker. Then came a voice. Deep. Distorted. Unit 7. Patient. Deceased. Nathan grabbed the radio instantly. The speaker squealed painfully. Time of death. 307. The radio died. Complete silence followed. Nathan stared down at it with trembling fingers. Behind him, somewhere in the living room, the old man began coughing violently. Nathan turned quickly and froze. At the far end of the hallway stood someone else. A man, tall, wearing an old paramedic uniform darkened with age. Rainwater dripped slowly from the sleeves onto the wooden floor. His face remained hidden beneath shadow, but Nathan could feel him staring directly at him. The hallway suddenly felt freezing cold. Nathan opened his mouth to speak. The figure took one slow step forward. and the old man whispered from the living room behind him. They couldn't save him either. The call at 307, Nathan Vale did not move. For the first time in years, the calm mask he wore so easily had slipped from his face. The man at the end of the hallway stood in absolute silence, rain dripping from the sleeves of his old paramedic uniform onto the wooden floor. Each drop struck the boards with unnatural clarity. Tap, tap, tap. Nathan could not see the man's face. Only the outline of him. Tall, narrow, still, too still. The kind of stillness that did not belong to a living body. Behind Nathan in the living room, the old man coughed again. Wet, weak, almost theatrical. They couldn't save him either, he whispered. Nathan forced himself to breathe. This isn't funny, he said. His voice came out thinner than he wanted. The figure in the hallway tilted its head slightly. Nathan stepped backward. The paramedic figure stepped forward. The radio clipped to Nathan's jacket suddenly crackled back to life. Static screamed through the speaker. Then came a voice, distant and broken. Unit 7, respond to Willow Road. Nathan grabbed the radio and ripped it from his jacket, throwing it hard against the wall. It hit the floor and split open. The static stopped. The figure at the end of the hallway vanished. Not walking away, not retreating, just gone. Nathan stood frozen, staring at the empty darkness where it had been. Every instinct screamed at him to leave the house, but greed and fear fought inside him. Fear told him to run. Greed reminded him that the old man was helpless, the wife was missing, and houses like this usually held medicine cabinets filled with expensive pills. Nathan hated that greed still had a voice in him. He hated it even more because it sounded reasonable. Slowly, he turned back toward the living room. The old man lay on the sofa exactly as before, pale hands folded over the blanket, eyes open now, and watching him. You saw him, the old man said. Nathan swallowed. I didn't see anything. The old man smiled faintly. Liars always say that first. Nathan's face hardened. I'm here to help you. No, the old man whispered. You're here to take. The words landed with surgical precision. Nathan felt anger rise quick and defensive. That was always easier than shame. You called for emergency assistance, Nathan said coldly. If you don't want help, I can leave. The old man turned his eyes slowly toward the fireplace. On the mantelpiece sat several framed photographs. Nathan had ignored them earlier, but now one caught his attention. It showed the same old man, much younger, standing beside a woman in a summer dress. Behind them was this house. The woman's smile looked tired but kind. The wife, Nathan assumed. Next to the photograph stood a small silver urn. Nathan stared at it. The old man noticed. She waited for an ambulance, he said softly. Years ago. Nathan looked back at him. My Eleanor. She waited on that floor for 40 minutes while snow buried the road. I held her hand until it went cold. His voice did not tremble. That made it worse. Nathan said nothing. The old man continued. After that, every siren made me sick. Every flashing light felt like a joke from God. Nathan tried not to listen. He had learned long ago that stories made stealing harder. It was much easier when people remained objects. Old bodies, pill bottles, wallets, names written on prescription labels. Not lives, not grief, but the house seemed determined to make him listen. The television in the corner flickered on again. Static, then grainy footage appeared. Not a channel, not a movie. A view of the living room they were standing in, but older. Snow pressed against the windows instead of rain. The carpet was different. The curtains were newer. A woman lay on the floor near the fireplace. Eleanor. Younger than Nathan expected. Her hand clutched her chest. The old man knelt beside her, sobbing soundlessly. On the television screen, blue and red lights flashed weakly through the windows. A paramedic entered. Then another. Nathan's breath caught. The second paramedic was the tall man from the hallway. The footage crackled. One of the paramedics tried compressions. The other stood completely still watching. The clock above the fireplace showed 3:07. Then the screen cut to black. Nathan stepped back from the television. What is this? The old man closed his eyes. An old house remembers. Nathan laughed once, sharp and nervous. No, this is some kind of setup. The old man opened his eyes again. Is that what you told the others? Nathan froze. The room seemed to shrink around him. The others, the ones who trusted your jacket. Nathan felt a cold pulse behind his eyes. You don't know me. The old man's voice dropped to a whisper. I know the shape of a man who wears mercy as a costume. That sentence hit Nathan harder than any accusation could have. For a moment, he saw himself clearly. Not as clever, not as unlucky, not as someone doing what he had to do. Just a man standing in a dead stranger's living room wearing a uniform he had not earned. His hand tightened around the strap of the medical bag. Inside were empty bottles, stolen labels, gloves, old bandages, and a small lockpick kit wrapped in gauze. He needed to leave. Now. Nathan turned toward the front door. It was gone. Not locked, not blocked. Gone. Where the door had been was only wallpaper and dark wooden trim seamless, as though no entrance had ever existed. Nathan's mouth went dry. He rushed toward the wall and pressed his hands against it. Solid. Impossible. No, he whispered. Behind him, the old man said, You came when she called. Nathan spun around. Who called me? My wife. She's dead. Yes. The house lights flickered. Somewhere upstairs, a woman began humming softly. Nathan backed away from the vanished door. The melody drifted down the staircase, fragile and mournful. It reminded him of his mother. That surprised him so much that his anger collapsed for a second. His mother used to hum when she cooked. Before the hospital. Before the bills. Before Nathan sat beside her bed watching nurses move around her with exhausted faces and indifferent hands. He had entered medical training after she died because he wanted to believe he could stop someone else from feeling that helpless. At least that was the story he once told himself. But somewhere between debt, grief, and failure, that dream had curdled into resentment. Then resentment became theft. Then theft became routine. The humming upstairs stopped. A woman's voice called softly, Nathan. His blood turned to ice. The old man smiled sadly. She knows your name. Nathan shouted toward the ceiling. Who are you? The house answered with a sound from the hallway. A door opening. Slowly. Creak. Nathan looked toward it. A bathroom door had opened halfway. Inside, the light flickered weakly. Medicine cabinet. He could see it from where he stood. White, clean, slightly ajar. Even now, some rotten part of him noticed. Some desperate part whispered, take what you came for and go. Nathan hated himself for stepping toward it, but he stepped anyway. The bathroom smelled strongly of antiseptic. His reflection in the mirror looked pale and unfamiliar. The fake badge on his jacket glinted beneath the flickering bulb. Nathan opened the medicine cabinet. Rows of pill bottles stood inside. Far too many. Morphine, oxycodone, hydrocodone, all labeled with names he did not recognize. Names of strangers. Names of people he had stolen from. Nathan stumbled back. No. The labels changed as he stared. One by one, names appeared from memory. Martha Denson, Peter Hall, Agnes Whitmore, Elliot Crane. People he had visited. People he had smiled at. People whose shaking hands had trusted him because he wore a jacket that promised help. Behind him, the radio parts on the floor crackled to life again. Impossible. The broken speaker hissed patient reports missing medication. Static. Caller states man in emergency jacket entered home. Static. Elderly female found deceased. Nathan turned slowly. The old paramedic stood behind him in the bathroom doorway. Close now. So close, Nathan could smell rainwater and old blood. The man's face was still hidden beneath shadow, but Nathan could see one thing clearly. A name stitched above the breast pocket. Unit 7. Nathan could not scream. The paramedic raised one hand and pointed toward the living room. Nathan backed away until his shoulders hit the sink. The hallway behind the figure filled with faint blue and red light. Emergency lights. But there was no ambulance outside. No road. No world. Only the house. The old man's voice floated from the living room. They are still waiting. Nathan looked down at his hands. For the first time, he noticed they were covered in black stains. Not blood. Ink. Names written across his skin in tiny trembling handwriting. The names from the bottles. The names from the houses. The names he had tried so hard to forget. The paramedic leaned closer. The radio whispered one final sentence. Unit 7, prepare for transport. And from somewhere upstairs, the dead woman called again. Nathan Vale, your call isn't finished. Your call isn't finished. Nathan Vale stared at the old paramedic in the bathroom doorway and felt the last piece of his confidence die. The figure did not breathe, did not blink, did not move like a man. Rainwater continued dripping from his sleeves, though Nathan could not understand how rain had followed him inside. Each drop landed on the floor with the rhythm of a failing heart monitor. Tap, tap, tap. The broken radio on the hallway floor hissed again. Unit 7. Prepare for transport. Nathan pressed himself against the sink, eyes wide, mouth dry. I'm not going anywhere, he whispered. The old paramedic lifted one hand slowly. His finger pointed toward Nathan's medical bag. Nathan looked down. The bag lay open on the bathroom floor. Inside, among the gloves and fake equipment, were pill bottles he did not remember bringing. Dozens of them. More than the bag could possibly hold. Each bottle carried a name. Martha Denson, Peter Hall, Agnes Whitmore, Elliot Crane, and others. So many others. Nathan shook his head. No. The old paramedic stepped aside from the doorway. Beyond him, the hallway had changed. It no longer looked like Willow Road House. The wooden walls stretched impossibly long, lined with doors Nathan recognized. Not from this house, from other houses. The homes he had entered wearing his fake jacket. The door with the brass knocker belonged to Mrs. Denson, the woman who had thanked him 3 times while he stole morphine from her bathroom. The blue door belonged to Peter Hall, who had shown Nathan a photograph of his dead wife before Nathan took $200 from his dresser. The narrow apartment door belonged to Agnes Whitmore, who had asked him if he had children. Nathan had laughed then. He did not laugh now. From behind each door came faint sounds. Coughing, crying, whispered prayers, old voices calling for help. The dead woman upstairs spoke again. Nathan Vale. Her voice drifted through the house like cold breath over glass. You answered the call. The old man in the living room coughed violently. Nathan stumbled past the paramedic and ran back toward the living room. The house seemed to tilt beneath him, the walls bending inward as if trying to close around his shoulders. The old man still lay on the sofa, but now the blanket covering him was soaked through with dark water. His pale eyes followed Nathan. She waited, the old man whispered. My Eleanor waited until 3:07. Nathan backed toward the wall, where the front door should have been. Still gone. Only wallpaper, only wood. Only the house refusing to release him. I didn't do anything to your wife, Nathan said, voice shaking. No, the old man said. But you wore their face. The television flickered on. Static exploded across the screen before an image appeared. Nathan saw himself. Not now. Months earlier. Standing in the doorway of an elderly man's bedroom, smiling, gently speaking, softly pretending to check blood pressure while slipping medication into his jacket pocket. The footage changed. Another house. Another victim. Another lie. Nathan watched himself steal from the dying again and again. Every scene carried the same terrible detail. The people always trusted him. That was the part he had never allowed himself to feel. The trust. The old man whispered, mercy is sacred. The television screen went black. Nathan sank slowly into a chair opposite the sofa. For the first time since entering the house, he no longer wanted to run only because he was afraid. He wanted to run because he could not bear seeing himself. The room darkened. The lamps dimmed until only the fireplace remained, though no fire burned inside it. From upstairs came soft footsteps. A woman descended the staircase. Eleanor. Nathan knew before he saw her face. She wore a faded nightgown. Her hair was silver and loose over her shoulders. Her expression was not angry. That made it worse. She looked sad, tired, as if she had been waiting for years. Nathan stood quickly. I'm sorry, he said before he could stop himself. The words surprised him. Eleanor paused at the foot of the stairs. Are you, Nathan? Opened his mouth. Nothing came out, because he did not know. Was he sorry, or was he simply terrified? Eleanor stepped closer. When my husband called, he begged them to hurry. He told them I was cold. He told them I was scared. Her eyes glistened under the dim light. They arrived too late. Nathan glanced toward the old paramedic, standing silently in the hallway. Eleanor followed his gaze. He carried that guilt until the road took him too. Nathan swallowed hard. What happened to him? The old man answered from the sofa. He kept hearing calls that weren't there. He drove back to Willow Road every year on the night Eleanor died. One winter, his ambulance went off the bridge. The old paramedic lowered his head. Nathan felt the story settle around him like a shroud. This house was not punishing him with monsters. It was punishing him with memory. Eleanor looked at Nathan's fake badge. You put on a uniform meant for the desperate and used it as a key. Nathan's eyes burned. I didn't kill anyone. Eleanor's face softened with terrible pity. No, you only made their last days lonelier. That broke something in him. Not completely, not beautifully, but enough. Nathan thought of his mother then, her thin hand in his, the smell of disinfectant, the unpaid bills stacked beside the hospital bed, the rage he felt when she died while strangers moved around her like she was another task to finish. He had once wanted to become the kind of person who arrived in time. Instead, he became the kind who arrived to take. The radio crackled again, patient declining. The walls trembled. Every clock in the house began ticking at once. 3:06. Nathan looked around in panic. The old man's eyes widened. Eleanor turned toward the clock. The paramedic in the hall lifted his head. 3:06. Tick, tick, tick. Nathan understood. Without being told, at 3:07, something would happen. The house had brought him here for a call, and the call was not finished. The old man suddenly gasped. His body arched beneath the blanket. Nathan froze. Then instinct moved before fear could stop him. He dropped to his knees beside the sofa and grabbed the old man's wrist. Cold. No pulse. Still, the old man gasped again. Nathan looked toward Eleanor. What do I do? She only watched him. Not helping, not forgiving, testing. Nathan tore open his medical bag. For the first time in years, he searched it not for things to steal, but for anything that might save someone. Most of it was useless. Fake, expired, broken. Just like him. The clock ticked louder. 3:06. The old man wheezed eyes fixed on Nathan. You're late, he whispered again. Nathan's hand shook. I know. He tilted the old man's head back, checked his airway, began compressions the way he had been taught before, dropping out before grief became rot inside him. 1, 2, 3. The house darkened. Doors along the impossible hallway opened one by one. Old faces watched him. The people he had stolen from. Some alive, some dead. All silence. Nathan kept pressing. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. Again. Again. Sweat ran down his face. His arms burned. The old paramedic stood beside him, now looking down. Nathan shouted without looking up. Help me! The figure did not move. Nathan understood. This was his call. His first real one in years. Maybe his only one. The clock hand moved. 3:07. Every light exploded into white. The radio screamed. The television blasted static. Eleanor cried out. The old man's body went still beneath Nathan's hands. Nathan continued compressions. No, he said. No, come on. His voice cracked. Please. For once, he was not acting. For once, there was no performance. No costume. No scam. Only a terrified man kneeling beside death, begging to arrive in time. Then, the old man inhaled sharply. Nathan fell backward. The room went silent. The clock stopped. 3:07. The old man opened his eyes. For one brief moment, warmth returned to them. He looked past Nathan toward Eleanor. My love, he whispered. Eleanor stepped forward, tears shining on her face. The old man smiled. Then both of them faded like smoke in morning light. The living room emptied. The impossible hallway vanished. The front door returned. Nathan sat on the floor, shaking, staring at the place where they had been. Only the old paramedic remained. He stood near the door, watching Nathan. Then slowly, he removed the badge from his own chest. Unit 7. He placed it on the floor in front of Nathan. The radio whispered one final message. Call complete. The paramedic vanished. Morning light broke through the windows. Rain had stopped. Nathan stumbled outside and found his van parked exactly where he had left it. The magnetic emergency symbols on the side had peeled halfway off in the rain. He tore them away with trembling hands. Then he opened the back of the van and threw out every stolen bottle, every fake tool, every piece of the lie he had built. He drove to the nearest police station before he could change his mind. Nathan confessed to everything. Not the house, not Eleanor, not Unit 7, No one would believe that, but he confessed to the thefts, the fake uniform, the stolen medication, the old people who had trusted him. He went to prison. Years passed. When he was released, older and quieter, Nathan became an orderly at a hospice center. He cleaned rooms, changed sheets, sat beside patients who had no family. He never wore a badge again. But sometimes, late at night, when the halls were silent and the dying whispered in their sleep, he heard static from radios that were not there. And once at exactly 3-7 inches the morning, an elderly woman reached for his hand and smiled. "You came," she whispered. Nathan held her hand until the end. This time he did not take anything. This time he stayed.